Welcome back. This week, we'll begin working on our final project, which is a culmination of all of the site analysis and map layers that we've worked on so far. Please read the final project assignment before viewing this presentation. We'll take a look at some of the patterns and principles that will guide us as we begin the final design project. The design process is quite involved. Don't hesitate to ask for help on your design project. Get your family and friends involved in designing your homestead. As you talk through the design, you'll see new opportunities and challenges. There will be times when you may be unsure of how to move forward, and it helps to get a fresh perspective. Regenerative design seeks to go beyond sustainability and self-sufficiency to create and regenerate thriving landscapes that can continue to become more diverse and more productive over time. Let's examine our own definitions of sustainable and self-sufficient as we begin this process of our final design project. Self-sufficiency can sometimes be called into question when we realize that we are part of nature. Sustainability has always been difficult to define, and at best, it means that we would continue to sustain what already exists. I think that we can do better. Regenerative design increases abundance and yields, as well as promoting community resilience and local economies. You spent quite a bit of time uncovering patterns in your site analysis. Now it's time to determine the main patterns for your site and look back at your larger goals. Begin to place your map layers on top of one another to discern patterns from your data. For example, you don't need to decide where to plant that Asian pear tree or peach tree. Your site analysis will allow the right planting site to emerge. Try to let go of designing and instead look for patterns and see how those patterns fit into your larger goals. As you work on your final design, look back over the permaculture principles. Try to focus on the beneficial connections between the elements that you place in your design, not so much on the elements themselves. Choose 4 or 5 principles to focus on, and explain which principles you feel like apply the most to your site in your final project. Some designers find inspiration in developing a design concept for a site. The design concept summarizes the organizing idea and specific vision for the site. A design concept is something that resonates with your goals, and it can range from the deeply personal to humorous or unusual. What is a theme that you can give to your site that gets you really excited to work on this design? After you've developed the overall picture of your site design and your design concept, you can begin to look at specific plantings. In gardening terms, we often talk about right plant, right place. This means that you should match the site conditions to the needs of the plant. Although you may not include a full palette of plants in your design, start by matching types of plants with sites that have the conditions that meet the needs of that particular plant. Begin designing patches and be sure to space your trees correctly. In your design, you will need to draw in the size of mature trees to scale to give you an idea of how far apart to plant. You may want to leave even more space between the trees for other crops. Keep in mind the architecture of plants as you design patches. Taller plants should go into the back of the patches, and shorter plants in between or in the front. The peach tree in this photo is the central plant. The currant can grow in the shade of the peach tree, and the comfrey is great at accumulating nutrients and building soil fertility. You will no doubt grow many annual vegetables in your homestead garden. Consider unusual perennial vegetables, fruits, and nuts as well, particularly perennial polycultures of multi-purpose plants. MNNNT is an acronym that I use to design polycultures. A polyculture is a planting of 2 or more species. When you're ready to move from the larger design to more specific plantings, you can use MINT as a framework. M stands for the main plant. This is usually a fruit tree or a large shrub. N is for a nitrogen-fixing plant. These plants improve the soil by converting nitrogen into a form that plants can use. N stands for nutrient accumulator plant. Nutrient accumulators are able to reach into the lower soil horizons and mine the soil for nutrients and minerals. N stands for nectary plants. Nectary plants provide nectar for insects, and insects provide pollination for our fruiting plants and trees. T stands for trickster. This is what I call a wild card plant. Usually it's an aromatic plant that's used to confuse pests. Here's an example of a mint polyculture. The main plant would be an Asian pear tree. The nitrogen fixer would be white clover. A nutrient accumulator that would fit in well would be large-flowered comfrey because this plant accumulates calcium, which is needed in quantity by fruit trees. Nectary plants could include white clover and chervil. A trickster plant would be the Welsh onion, which is planted around the base of the tree. Onion family plants would deter pest insects. As far as your design specifics, your final project should include as much detail as you see fit. If you are very familiar with fruit trees and already have varieties picked out, feel free to include them in your design. On the other hand, it's perfectly acceptable to label one area orchard and leave it at that, as long as you can depict the mature size of each orchard tree to scale. In the excitement of putting in a new design, succession is something that is sometimes overlooked. How will your site look 15 to 20 years from now? Succession is the change in plant communities over time. As your plants mature, sunlight will become a limited resource. How will your design change over time as succession occurs? To get an idea, look up some of the useful lifespans of a few of your key perennials or fruit trees. Some trees grow and bear fruit very quickly, but are only productive for about a decade, while others may take up to 30 years to bear, and can be productive for hundreds of years. How will you maintain a balance of species to provide for your needs as these temporal factors come into play? If you're interested in finding out more information and examples of polyculture designs, I would recommend the Midwest Permaculture Plant Guild's ebook found here.